There are several ways to make a painting. Everyone has their own process. My way of painting landscapes have not really changed very much in the last few years, but I have learned more about my process by sharing and documenting it. Here is how I paint landscapes. First, I start with thumbnails. Depends on what I'm doing. If I have a focus, I will, let's say forest for example, I will do sketches of that. But in this case, I don't really know what to do with it because I just wanted to show my process of it and go through all the steps. So I just started drawing and painting, just figuring out small sketches, try and find something interesting in that, and iterate as I go. So I started out with some line drawings, and then I wasn't really feeling that, so I moved on to some value drawings or value studies. It's more painting than drawing. And I had a few good ideas there. But another way that I like doing is doing them in color because I just have way more fun with that. It's not really the best thing to do for beginners because if you don't have a grasp of how values work or how to use value, the colors can kind of become a distraction for that. But for me, I'm experienced enough that I use color in them. Which, there's another step after this, which does use color. And that's color keys. It's pretty much the same as thumbnailing, but you spend a bit more time on it. And that's more figuring out the light source or the light direction, and also figuring out maybe playing with different colors that could work in the same composition. Here are a few color keys that I made. I had this one in the upper left as one of my original thumbnails that I did in color, and I decided to just maybe play around with different light source, maybe have the light coming from in front of it. That didn't work super well. Tried maybe like a green colors. That kind of gives it more of a peaceful vibe. It's still a little creepy because of how I have the spikes and stuff and these vines and whatnot. Then I went with maybe like purple and yellow and have the light source coming from a torch or a fire from someone walking around. And then I also had this blue one where the light's kind of coming from the back but also to the side to give it kind of a different feel to it. That blue one actually feels like it's almost like it's nighttime, and it's kind of like at the near the surface. And I just did those to kind of explore. And even though I'm gonna go with the first one, I thought it was a good idea to have options because maybe something else could work for it, and that does happen sometimes. But that is something I'm struggle with including in my process, but I think it's an important step, so I'm showing it in this video because I always do thumbnails. I don't necessarily do color keys every time. Let's move on to the actual painting itself. So I start with doing a basic line sketch just to place everything. It's a little quicker to figure out where things go when you can kind of have a rough idea where it is. It forces me to plan it out a little more. And when I start coloring, I just kind of block in roughly the areas where I want it and refine it as I go. So something I do here so you can see the line drawing a lot easier is I put it above everything else, put it on multiply just to make it easy to see. That darkens it. And then I continue to paint. I eventually probably already got rid of the line drawing here. And I just kind of fill it in and try and get the big shapes first and I mostly focus on doing the sections that look like they need more work. So if I get bored with something, like if I get bored painting the fire, I can go paint some reflections, and I added a little pond or a pool of water in this cave. I don't know if that really symbolizes anything, but you would probably be wanting to run towards this water in the cave, unless it's oil and that's what's burning. I haven't figured out what's burning in the cave. I'm just kind of painting it based on my idea. And caves are a lot more difficult than I thought they would be, because there's just so many little things to paint, and you don't want to get carried away with too many stalactites or stalagmites, whatever they're called. I can't ever remember what's what, and that can be tricky with caves, because you want to have a balance of not too much detail, but also enough to not be overwhelming, but enough to communicate that you are in a cave. And also with the shapes are very similar. You don't want them to repeat exactly the same. You need to add a little variation to them. And that's also another tricky part of this. And I have a little guy. I was trying to make it look like he's running away from the fire, but it kind of looks like he's running towards it a little bit. And I have a few layers that after I get a rough in, I break down the layers. So I have about 3 layers. And sometimes I start a new layer to paint over a section. And it can kind of become a mess sometimes, so I think I need to work on being more organized with my layers. Now I'm starting to zoom in, and this is where the video will get a little crazy. I might cut some of this, just so you don't get sick watching it. A lot of people that I hear, like, in person who watch my videos, like friends and family, are like, it moves around too much. So I'm trying to minimize that, but that's not, I can't always be zoomed out when I'm working on it. I try to, because there's one, it makes the time lapse look better, but the main reason is it helps me see the full picture of everything. And I kind of just skip to the end, because I meant to the last 20 minutes I didn't get recorded. So let's talk about the finished painting. So there you have it. This is a painting that I'm calling. I'm also, now that I'm looking at it full screen, I see more issues with it. But I'm calling this painting done, or at least done enough for now. I had a lot of fun working on this painting. There were some challenges in it, which makes it fun in a way. And there's some story that I kind of have in my head, where a character from a previous painting that I did. But my idea was the guy was, I'm not really sure what his abilities are. He's kind of like a pyromancer, so he does fire stuff. And he has problems. So he escaped to this cave as a way to try and tame his fire abilities. And that didn't go so well, because he found some flammable substance underground, and now he has to escape. That's kind of my perspective on how this painting is, and the story that I kind of developed as I painted. That's part of the fun of painting. Especially with these type of paintings where there's some drama going on, and you create stories in your head. But that's another topic for another day, and without further ado, Dartagon out.